I'm James Eaton. I'm principal in our tax department at Katzabosch. We see lots of small businesses, and one of the things we see is as businesses start to grow, you run into human relations as something you have to spend some more time on. At a macro level, we kind of find a couple of basic assumptions, and one of those is when you look at what somebody's salary is going to be, maybe you're looking online at Monster or Indeed or one of those places, when you look at actually what it's going to cost you as a business, you kind of got to figure close to 150% of that. That is to say, if you're going to hire somebody with a $60,000 salary, you need to be budgeting close to $90,000 for what it's going to cost after benefits and taxes and all those sort of things. So that's one thing that we often get the reaction from small businesses, oh, I can't possibly afford that. But you have to remember that when you go out and hire somebody for $60,000 a year, you really need to be planning for them to generate $180,000 to $240,000 a year in revenue. That is 3 to 4 times their salary. So in a kind of a service-based business, you really need to be anticipating that those folks are going to generate that kind of revenue. And why do you say would they need that? Well, you have to build that into your business model, and that goes back to one of the cores is having that business model and understanding what my revenue expectations are, what my margin is, and how that flows to the bottom line. And at the end of the day, you have to then understand what it means for the after-tax cash to the owner. Multi-pronged sort of step, but if you look at it and you say, the person that I'm going to pay $60,000 is going to generate $240,000, and they're also going to generate $60,000 of overhead. And let's just say there's going to be $60,000 of project costs. So even though I'm charging $240,000 for them, I'm really only bringing $60,000 to the bottom line of the business. And after the business owner pays, I don't know, say 40% of that in taxes, you're left with roughly $36,000 to the business owner's pocket. And again, that's one of those places where we oftentimes see business owners go, wow, I can generate $1 million a year in revenue and walk away with $150,000 a year of after-tax income. And basically, yep, that's sort of how that works, which is a little bit eye-opening to the average business owner when they go, look, I'm so successful, I'm generating $1 million a year in revenue, and we're saying, that's great, after tax you need to take out a second mortgage. So it's something that really comes down to that standard line of having that very developed, very detailed business model. When it comes to HR, there's another set of important sort of documents. That's making sure that you have all your policies and procedures in place. So a handbook is really important. There are people out there that'll help you with those, obviously for a fee. Those are really important. You have to cover all the normal things. You also want to think about benefits. Again, there are benefits consultants out there. In the state of Maryland, there are also special benefits programs for small businesses, and that'll make it easier for you to help your employees get the benefits they need, whether that would be medical insurance, health care, or if that's retirement plans. There are special programs for small businesses, and they're easy enough to Google, but often you want to find a consultant to help you make sure that when you're ready to expand into having more employees, that you've got the right benefit plans in place. I think there are a lot of things that small business owners don't necessarily think about because they're not trained in business or as accountants or as that sort of thing. They're trained in whatever it is that they're great at. So again, as we discussed, an employee is going to cost you a lot more than what the salary says. So that's an important thing to know. There are those really technical sort of things that sound, kind of like big business gobbledygook, but I think you really have to understand it. Whether it's a service or a product, you have to understand your margins. And so you have to understand, okay, if I sell 100 units or 100 hours or $100, how much of that it covers costs and how much of that goes to the bottom line. And then again, how much of that do I need to live as the business owner? So we kind of say internally that if you make between 75 and 90% of your salary in the first year out on your own, you're a great success. Think about that for a second. That means if you take a 10 to a 25% pay cut in the first year of being out on your own, you're a tremendous success. If you make dollar for dollar the same amount of money that you made in your salary in the year before, you're an unqualified success. We see very few of those. So you have to be amenable, you have to be open to, you have to approach this with eyes wide open to say that I'm planning on taking a roughly, maybe 10 or 15% pay cut the first year. And we get people in, and they're great folks, and they say, hey, I was making a salary of $100,000, and now I'm making a profit of $120,000. My income went up $120,000. And then we show them a $50,000 tax bill because self-employment taxes are really very high, especially in that kind of $100,000 to $130,000 level. you're really paying close to 50% in taxes, which was not always abundantly clear to you. One of the biggest missteps we see for small business owners is that they just don't understand. They've never been in a world where they have to pay their own taxes instead of just having it withheld on a paycheck by paycheck basis. And that really does take either a fair degree of savings and just saying I'm going to save 40 or 45% of every dollar that I bring in, or a fair amount of programming and analysis to say, okay, each quarter how much tax will I owe on this income, and what do you do from there. One of the biggest things we see initial startup small businesses really struggle with is what to do about taxes and how much taxes cost. Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you can replace your income dollar for dollar in the first year, and then you can go from there, and you can get to 150% of your income in the first couple years, you're doing great. By and large, if the goal is just to replace my income and not have to go into the office and work for, quote, the man, that's okay, but that's an awfully lot of stress and strain and time and being up at night and paying the bills on Saturdays and being in charge of a business just to replace the same amount of salary. So we don't think that should be the goal. You really want to be, aiming at it, maybe making 2 times or 3 times that salary in order to make it work. There's an old saying in accounting that 50% of small businesses fail in the first year and 75% fail in the first 2 years. So if you can get through the first 2 years and you're making 150 to 200% of what you were making as a salary, then I would say you're tremendously successful.